Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Ben here. I am back again today doing another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about survivor locations. So, if you're unfamiliar, um, Survivor is a TV show where they have a competition and they usually do it at different locations around the world. And so typically it's, as you can see here, I have a map up of a lot of the different locations that the show has been to. They have basically the premise of the show is they never actually do it in North America. They always do it in a kind of an exotic location was the premise of the show. And seeing as it's a show about survival, they're trying to put people in an unfamiliar location and habitat and environment where they have to acquiesce and kind of adjust and be really handy and outdoorsy and adventurous and able to, battle not only each other but also the elements. And so, because of that, they've typically gone to a lot of crazy, cool places. As you can see across the map, a lot of South America, a lot of Central America, a lot of like Asia or Pacific Asia, and then a couple of like the main continent of Asia and Africa and Australia. But it's been primarily Central America and Pacific Asia are where they go. But if you're unfamiliar, since I believe it's, let's see here, technically since season 34, which is Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers, Survivor has been now they're I don't know if it's technically permanent, but at least for the long haul, they're going to be on the same beaches every single season. So 34 they for season 34 and going forward, they signed basically what was like a lifelong contract with the country of Fiji that they're allowed to shoot their seasons on the same beach every single time whenever they want, and they'll pay a certain fee, and they're allowed to stay there forever. And so Jeff Probst, the host, and now he's become basically the executive producer. So if you don't know what that means, it means that he went from being just the host when the show started to now he's essentially second in command of the whole production of the entire show. So he has gotten a lot more control, and basically, besides the higher ups at CBS, like the actual executives of the network, he has like basically the most control over the show. Him and Mark Burnett, who created the show. Mark Burnett's the creator, if you didn't know that. So the control of the show, what used to be like a bunch of executives, then Mark Burnett, then a bunch of producers, and then a long list of people, and then basically towards the bottom was Jeff Probst. He's now basically third in command. It goes network execs, Mark Burnett, and then Jeff Probst. Well, basically why I'm listing all that out is because he had said in an interview about a year ago that he thinks that they'll probably just stay in Fiji for the duration of the rest of the show. And because he said it, I give it a lot more weight because he is so high up on the chain of command as far as Survivor goes these days. And so with that in mind, I think it is rather concerning in a way that Survivor is pretty committed to just staying in one location forever going forward. And I say that because I think one of the best parts of Survivor is the environment and the location. And what I mean by that is you look at kind of the standard Survivor season. It's what we've probably experienced 30 out of the 40 seasons being, kind of like nice sandy beaches, a tropical setting. It's probably in Central America, and if it's not, it's probably in a nice tropical place in Pacific Asia. Like even you look at season 1, Borneo, and it was in a part of China that people probably weren't super familiar with, but it was still like beaches and jungle and what we typically think of. And then you have kind of your typical, um, tropical seasons that you name any one of them, Cagayan or Philippines or um, Caramoan or Samoa, like any of those places. They're Pacific Asia or Central America, and they have nice beaches, and that's the typical setting. But I think some of the coolest Survivor seasons, as far as location go, are like Gabon was awesome in Africa. Survivor Africa was probably the best location ever. Season 3, it was super cool. Survivor China was awesome in that it was just so drastically different. There was no beach. It was dank and kind of gross, honestly, but people seem to find it interesting. Guatemala was miserable, and people liked that too. Not the season, but the setting was kind of cool. Tocantins in like the highlands of Brazil, that was an awesome setting. Um, and then let's see here. When I think about some of the other cool ones, Australia was a pretty cool setting. Um, Pearl Islands, I guess that was sandy beaches, but it was cool to me. Um, let's see here. Some of the other ones I'm trying to think of that were cool. And like pretty distinct. Those are probably the most distinct ones, like the handful that I just listed off there. But overall, some pretty interesting ones, and I just hope that they would continue to do that and continue to have unique locations, because honestly, if they don't, you're taking away what I think is like a key fundamental part of the game, or I guess not part of the game, but part of the show, because the actual gameplay of Survivor is not usually too impacted by the environment. You could say it is in some ways, like if there's a beach and a person goes fishing, bringing in a lot of fish could help their social standing, which would in turn help them advance in the game. Or if you're willing to go get water from the river or the well, you're seen as slightly more favorably by the tribe. Or if you're willing to go get firewood in the jungle, things like that. But for the most part, the environment doesn't too drastically affect the game. Um, I guess maybe if there's a lot of water challenges in a given season and you're terrible at swimming, you might go home sooner. But as far as like actual voting and strategy, it's usually not a huge part. But I think that how it impacts Survivor is that the show itself is, in a way, kind of an adventure. You have these strangers in a foreign land, and you the show should be both about the strategy, and it should really be like it's a four-pronged show. The gameplay is three-pronged in the social, strategic, and the challenges, but the actual show itself should be four-pronged. It should be those three elements plus the I guess you'd call it like adventure slash environment, really, in that or like the actual survival aspect, like the adventure slash survival aspect, which is where the location plays a huge part. And like for instance, these past 7 seasons that have all been in Fiji, season 30, I guess it's season 35 going forward, Heroes and Healers and Hustlers. I might have previously said it was 34, but it's 35. Between that and Ghost Island and David and Goliath and what was it called? Edge of Extinction and Island of the Idols and Winners at War. They were all on the exact same island. They all looked the same. And I think that really takes away any sense of the survival aspect or the adventure aspect, which unfortunately, like in general, Survivor's definitely been moving against. And they really have made it pretty clear that all they care about is like the gameplay anymore, and they don't really care about the adventure aspect. And I think that it's sad in a way, because I think that's one of the key parts of the show, and without that, it's just a bunch of people who are playing with a bunch of advantages and trying to vote each other out. And honestly, seasons 35 through 39 really, really blend together if you watch them consecutively. And like, let's say you're binge watching the show and you watch all those seasons consecutively, which at one point I had to do some catching up and I hadn't seen 35 through 39, and I watched them all in like a couple weeks. And I honestly, now there are some players who I cannot tell you what season they belong to, because the setting just looked the same throughout, and the seasons really blended together because the gameplay became very similar and the setting was the same in every single season. And so for that reason, I think they really should go back to changing up the locations, because basically you have three ways to make a Survivor season distinct. You have the location, you have a twist in how you devise the cast, like for instance, Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers, or Brains, Bronze, Beauty, or Loved Ones, or Heroes and Villains. You can kind of make the cast the distinct thing. Or, as I said, the location. Or the last way is like the gameplay, like for instance, Redemption Island, or Edge of Extinction, or Ghost Island, kind of like twists that are part of the game. And they've essentially eliminated one of the three ways to make a season distinct, which is location. And so now they just have to work doubly hard to make the cast distinct or the theme of the season distinct. And I just think that that's a shame that they are kind of ignoring one of the main facets of the show as a whole. And they're basically like, it's just a little bit cheaper to stay in Fiji for forever, so we're going to do that. Because honestly, I think if that's the case going forward, the show's going to become, I hate to say it, but a lot more generic and a little and more stale if they just stay in the same location going forward. Because honestly, the seasons in like Micronesia and China and Africa and Tocantins, those are super cool compared to just the generic island in Fiji every single time. So that's all I got for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.